Thousands of years ago, early humans survived on simple, raw instincts. Searching relentlessly for food, someone accidentally ate a strange, wild mushroom. They thought it was sustenance. They were wrong. Within minutes, their perception of reality completely, utterly shattered. Trees began to dance, colors sang, and time itself slowed to a crawl. Scientists call this groundbreaking moment history's stoned ape theory. They ask a shocking question. Did psilocybin mushrooms spark the birth of human imagination? This accidental trip forced early brains to connect abstract concepts and develop primitive language. They needed words for the strange, new worlds they were seeing. Soon after, strange, vibrant primitive art began appearing on cave walls across multiple continents. Shamanic rituals were born directly from these early plant-induced spiritual journeys. These tribes believed these glowing fungi allowed direct, face-to-face contact with spiritual gods. What began as a desperate bite for survival quickly turned into intentional, sacred gathering rituals. Nature's hidden chemistry was quietly, powerfully, rewriting human culture forever. And when hunter-gatherers finally settled down, their ancient drug culture evolved directly into structured trade. The agricultural revolution allowed systematic cultivation of these mind-altering crops. These unique plants were no longer just food. They became vital currency and medicine. Humanity had taken its very first, risky step into the world of pharmacology. An ancient civilization was about to build massive, powerful empires around them. Enter the ancient, fertile land of Mesopotamia, between the rivers. Around 3000 BCE, Sumerian farmers cultivated a glowing, dangerous red flower. They named it Hul-Gil, literally translated, the joy plant. The world's first pharmaceutical label was a smiley face. Sumerians learned to extract the milky white sap from these poppy seed pods. This, right here, was raw opium, the world's first major narcotic painkiller. It could eliminate physical pain entirely and induce deep, euphoric, synthetic sleep. This new miracle cure traveled fast. Ancient trade routes spread opium across the entire Mediterranean region like wildfire. By 1500 BCE, ancient Egypt became the global capital of the lucrative opium trade. They refined the process, creating opium thebaicum, highly valued and exported globally in distinct, poppy-shaped jugs. Egyptian doctors prescribed it for everything, including as a standard cure for crying babies. But Egyptian royalty had other plans. Opium became the essential ingredient in their lavish, wild, aristocratic banquets. Opium made massive fortunes, but it also brought a darker invention, mass narcotic addiction. Ancient Egyptian physicians noted, with worry, patients becoming heavily, hopelessly, dependent on the plant. And yet, empires couldn't stop using it as their primary medicine. They had no choice. Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius reportedly took daily opium doses just to function under pressure. From ruling sprawling empires to patching up brutal battlefield wounds, opium ruled the ancient world completely. But while the West traded poppies for power, the East discovered a different, subtler herb. We look now to ancient China. Enter ancient cannabis. In 2700 BCE, legendary Emperor Shen Nung documented its medical uses in his pharmacopoeia. Known as Ma, Chinese doctors used it for pain relief, malaria, and even gout. But early Taoist monks also discovered its spiritual potential. They burned cannabis seeds in bronze incense burners, using the dense smoke for deep meditation. They believed inhaling the sacred fumes granted visions and even immortality. Nomadic Scythian tribes took this cannabis culture even further on the steppes. These warrior horsemen built small, felt tents over piles of red-hot stones. They threw handfuls of hemp seeds onto the rocks, creating thick, psychoactive steam. The ancient Greek historian Herodotus recorded their wild, joyful steam baths with shock. He wrote that Scythians howled and danced with joy inside the thick smoke. It was history's first recorded group hotbox ritual. Plant-based altars were everywhere in the structure of the ancient world, and the plant kingdom was just getting started. As Eurasian trade routes expanded, cannabis traveled deeper into India and Persia. In India, it was refined into Bhang, a sacred, drinkable mixture linked directly to the deity Lord Shiva. It was consumed primarily during major festivals like Holi to achieve spiritual bliss. Meanwhile, in the medieval Middle East, hashish culture emerged with full force. By concentrating the potent trichomes of the plant, hashish provided far stronger, more immediate mind-altering effects. Legends even grew around mysterious, shadowy groups using hashish before brutal battles. Whether legend or historical fact, plants were now deeply, dangerously, intertwined with global power structures. Centuries later, an entirely different kind of plant power returned to Asia in a massive global conflict. The 19th century Opium Wars saw great empires fight viciously over drug trade control. To balance trade, Britain systematically smuggled tons of Indian-grown opium into Chinese ports. The profit margins were monstrous. Millions of Chinese citizens became hopelessly addicted in legal opium dens. The Chinese emperor, witnessing the decay of his society, banned opium and famously destroyed thousands of British shipments in a bonfire. This act triggered full-scale naval warfare between global superpowers. The superior British Navy devastated Chinese defenses. Plant addiction had literally rewritten modern world maps and signed treaties. It proved a simple red flower could bring down an entire dynastic empire. Now, let me ask you a question as we pivot. Have you ever wondered about the chemical mastery of early South American tribes? Deep in the impenetrable Amazon rainforest, shamans mastered structured chemical mixtures thousands of years ago. They combined two seemingly harmless plants to create one of history's most potent brews. They took the DMT from one plant, and importantly, an inhibitor from a second plant that allowed the DMT to actually enter the human brain. Out of 80,000 Amazonian plant species, early shamans found the exact two required for the mixture. When modern scientists ask how they could possibly know, shamans famously reply, "The plants told us." Drinking ayahuasca triggers profound, reality-breaking hallucinations and violent spiritual purging. It was used primarily to diagnose difficult illnesses and communicate directly with jungle spirits. Tribes knew how to manipulate the brain's deepest chemistry long before modern pharmacology existed. But sometimes the source of power wasn't a vine, it was a simple leaf. Far above the Amazon jungle, high in the brutal Andes Mountains, the mighty Inca Empire relied on a totally different natural stimulant. Enter the sacred coca leaf. For thousands of years, Incas chewed fresh coca leaves, mixed with a little lime to activate the chemistry, just to survive extreme mountain altitudes. Chewing it suppressed hunger, suppressed thirst, and eliminated fatigue in freezing temperatures with low oxygen. Royal Inca messengers could run thousands of miles across rugged, steep mountain trails, powered entirely by coca leaves. When Spanish conquistadors finally conquered the Inca Empire, they initially banned coca, calling it the idol of the devil. But when enslaved Inca workers collapsed by the thousands in dark Spanish silver mines, Spaniards conveniently changed their minds. Spaniards realized that paying enslaved workers in cheap coca leaves tripled silver mining production. Spaniards monetized coca, shipping thousands of tons back to Europe. The leaf that powered an empire's survival now powered its systematic plunder. By 1859, European chemists in modern labs isolated the active alkaloid, purified cocaine. It was immediately hailed as a medical miracle cure-all. Psychoanalyst Sigmund Freud even wrote enthusiastic research papers praising its benefits. It was put into toothache drops for children, daily tonics, medicated wines, and early sodas. The original formula for Coca-Cola contained real coca leaf extracts. Eventually, severe addiction risks forced governments globally to strictly outlaw purified cocaine. Yet, synthetic variations like Novocaine still revolutionize dental surgery and medical anesthesia today. Ancient plant discoveries laid the fundamental base for modern hospital medicine. If ancient people hadn't risked death and poison, modern surgery wouldn't exist as we know it. We owe our pharmacies to early, dangerous plant tests. Humanity's entire journey with natural drugs was full of risky trials, wild breakthroughs, and lethal accidents. Some plants brought spiritual peace, while others brought empires to chaos. But the American continents had another sacred mind-altering leaf. We shift north. Indigenous tribes harvested wild tobacco leaves for structured ceremonial use for thousands of years. But understand, Ancient wild tobacco was up to 10 times stronger than anything in modern cigarettes. Smoking it induced intense, immediate dizzy highs, vomiting, and deep trance states. Because of this power, it was used exclusively to seal peace treaties and sacred tribal vows. This ancient, respectful tradition is the origin of the iconic historical peace pipe. It was a tool of diplomacy, not casual addiction. Meanwhile, back across the Mediterranean in ancient Greece, priestesses used an entirely different toxic plant structure to predict the future. The famous oracle of Delphi sat over cracks in the mountain, babbling confusing prophecies while high on toxic vapors and henbane weeds. Henbane caused powerful, delusional delirium. History records Greek kings and famous generals making massive war decisions based on these plant-induced, confusing visions. From war prophecies to structured party planning, natural chemistry ruled ancient politics. And sometimes the trip was a structured festival. Far across the ocean, another desert plant was unlocking deep visions. We look to the arid American Southwest. Enter peyote, the hallucinogenic desert cactus. For over 5,000 years, native North American tribes have respectfully harvested these small, button-shaped desert cacti, containing potent mescaline. Chewing the incredibly bitter cactus triggered vivid, geometric rainbow visual trips and total spiritual rebirths. Native tribes used it to heal difficult diseases and speak directly with ancestral spirits. It was so sacred to their culture that Spanish conquerors later tried to ban it entirely, calling it the devil's weed. But while desert tribes chose cactus, medieval European peasants were accidentally eating lethal poison fungus. Ergot, a toxic black mold that grew secretly on rye grain during wet summers. When entire villages baked their winter bread with infected rye flour, mass insanity erupted across towns. Entire populations suffered from terrifying hallucinations, a burning sensation in their limbs, and violent convulsions. Ergot contains natural chemical compounds nearly identical to modern LSD. Historians now believe the infamous, tragic Salem witch trials were actually triggered by moldy rye bread. Young girls hallucinated dark monsters and black dogs, accusing innocent neighbors of witchcraft based entirely on natural chemical poisoning. An entire tragic historical crisis caused purely by bad rye flour. Every pill in your modern pharmacy traces its roots directly back to these primitive plant tests. Nature was humanity's first and wildest drug laboratory. Some people used these tools for wisdom, some for power, and some just had a terrible accident at the baker's. But sometimes the trip wasn't a mistake or a spiritual retreat. It was an intentional weapon of war. History has no warriors who utilize performance-enhancing drugs quite like the Vikings. Meet the terrifying, legendary Norse Berserkers. Before charging into battle, these elite shock troops consumed a brew made from the fly agaric mushroom, the classic red with white spots mushroom. This highly toxic mushroom induced a state of intense, unstoppable, psychoactive rage. It blocked pain signals entirely, making them feel no physical damage and fight through severe wounds. Viking Berserkers fought in a daze, entirely numb to reality, with an almost supernatural animal fury. To their enemies, they looked like demons rising from the ground. In reality, it was history's first performance-enhancing drug cocktail. The subsequent high was followed by severe physical exhaustion, but it gave them a terrifying edge. Nature has been a source of battlefield superiority for millennia, and that closes our circle. Nature was humanity's original, wildest performance enhancer, pharmacy, and spiritual conduit. Let's quickly recap this crazy, lethal journey. Magic mushrooms forced early human imagination and language to explode. Sumerians and Egyptians turned opium into the world's first global economic narcotic addiction trade. Chinese Taoists and Scythian horsemen mastered cannabis rituals. Amazonian shamans combined two unique plants to brew the soul vine ayahuasca. Incas conquered brutal high mountains with the simple coca leaf, monetized by Spaniards. Native Americans smoked wild tobacco for sacred peace pipes. Greek oracles predicted the future of warfare high on henbane vapors. Peyote cactus unlocked deep, geometric desert visions. Moldy ergot rye bread accidentally triggered mass insanity and tragic witch trial panics. and Viking Berserkers utilized performance-enhancing mushrooms for battlefield invincibility. Our ancestors survived, bled, hallucinated, and experimented on themselves so that modern medicine and chemistry could even exist today. We stand on the shoulders of very high ancestors. Nature was the original, wildest pharmacy in the human story. So, let us know, which ancient natural drug trip surprised you the most in this journey? Was it the moldy bread witch trials, or the high tobacco peace pipes? Drop a comment below and share your thoughts with us in the Epoch Arc community. If you enjoyed this deep dive into history's wild and dangerous side, smash that subscribe button to join our next expedition. Don't forget to like and share this video with your fellow history buffs. Join us on the Epoch Arc as we uncover the wild habits that defined our shared human civilization. Every era holds incredible secrets waiting to be unearthed. The Epoch Arc, mapping human history.